My sister gave me 24 hours to pay $48,000 after our father's funeral. She didn't know what I found before. Start, please like and subscribe for more. The funeral ended at 3 p.m. By 3:45, I was standing in our father's kitchen, still wearing my black dress, mascara smudged under my eyes from crying into a tissue during the eulogy. My sister Nina didn't cry. Not once. She sat in the front pew with her phone face down on her lap, checking it every few minutes like she was waiting for a stock alert. When the pastor asked if anyone wanted to share memories, she stayed silent. I was the one who stood up. I was the one who talked about how Dad taught us to ride bikes in the park, how he made pancakes shaped like animals every Sunday morning. Nina just stared at her phone. Now she was standing across from me in the kitchen, perfectly composed. Her hair was still in that tight bun. Her makeup hadn't moved. She looked like she'd just come from a business meeting, not our father's funeral. She slid a folder across the counter. Not a sympathy card. Not a hug. A folder. "What's this?" I asked. "An invoice," she said. Her voice was flat. No emotion, like she was telling me the weather. I opened it. The first page was a spreadsheet, columns and rows, numbers everywhere. Retroactive rent, $24,000, utilities. 5 years. $8,400. Household maintenance, $6,200. Care expenses, $9,400. Total, due, $48,000. I stared at it. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. "What is this?" I asked again, quieter this time. Nina adjusted her watch. It was one of those expensive ones. Diamonds around the edge. "It's what you owe me." "Owe you?" "You lived here for 5 years, Mara, rent-free. You used electricity, water, internet. You ate food from the fridge. That costs money." My hands started shaking. The paper trembled between my fingers. "I was taking care of Dad," I said. "And I appreciate that," Nina said, like she was reading from a script. "But appreciation doesn't pay bills. I've been covering the mortgage on this property for 5 years while you stayed here. I'm liquidating the estate. You have 24 hours to pay or you need to leave." 24 hours? "I'm listing the house on Monday morning. The realtor's coming tomorrow afternoon to stage it. I need you out before then." I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't joking. There was no hesitation in her eyes. No guilt, no second guessing. She meant it. "Nina," I said slowly, "I gave up my job to take care of him. That was your choice. I spent my savings on his medication. Also your choice. He was our father. And now he's gone," Nina said. She picked up her purse from the counter. "The invoice is itemized. If you want to dispute any line item, you can email me. But the total is due by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Otherwise, you're trespassing." She walked toward the door. I stood there, frozen. Then she stopped. Turned back. "Oh, and Mara? Don't make this harder than it has to be. I know you're grieving, but business is business." She left. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood in that kitchen for a long time. The same kitchen where Dad used to make us hot chocolate on winter mornings. Where he'd sit and do crossword puzzles while I cooked dinner for him during his final months. The same kitchen where Nina just handed me an eviction notice at my father's funeral. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked into Dad's study, locked the door, and sat down at his desk. Because before I was a caretaker, before I was a grieving daughter, I was Mara Chen, certified forensic accountant. And Nina had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Let me tell you what the last 5 years actually looked like. I was 26 when Dad got the diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor said he had maybe 18 months if we were lucky. I was working at Henderson and Associates at the time. Mid-level position, decent salary, finally paying off my student loans. I had an apartment downtown. Seated a boyfriend who was talking about moving in together, a life that was just starting to feel stable. Nina was 32. She ran a cosmetics business called Luxe Beauty. Or at least, she said she ran it. Mostly, she posted photos on Instagram with captions about entrepreneurship and self-care. When Dad got sick, we had a family meeting. Just the three of us, sitting in this same study. Dad was calm about it. He'd already written his will, organized his files, picked out his funeral plot. He said he wanted to spend his remaining time at home, not in a hospital. He asked if one of us could help coordinate his care. Nina said she couldn't. "I'm in the middle of a product launch," she explained. "I've got investors breathing down my neck. If I step away now, the whole company could collapse." I looked at Dad. He was trying to hide it. But I could see the disappointment in his eyes. "I can do it," I said. Nina looked relieved. "Really? That would be amazing, Mara. Dad, see? Mara's got this." "I'll need to take a leave of absence from work," I said. "Temporary, right?" Dad asked. "Of course," I said. That was 5 years ago. The leave of absence became permanent after 3 months. Dad's condition declined faster than anyone expected. The cancer spread to his liver, then his lungs. He needed round-the-clock care. Nina visited twice that first year, once at Christmas, once on Dad's birthday. Both visits lasted less than 2 hours. "I just can't handle seeing him like this," she told me during the Christmas visit. She was standing in the hallway, refusing to go into his room. "It's too much for me emotionally. You're so strong, Mara." "I don't know how you do it." I wanted to tell her that I wasn't strong. I was exhausted. I was watching our father waste away, measuring out morphine doses, changing adult diapers, learning medical terminology I never wanted to know. But she left before I could say anything. After that, she stopped visiting entirely. She sent texts instead. "Thinking of you both. Sending positive energy. Let me know if you need anything." I never responded to that last one, because I knew what would happen if I actually asked for help. The medical bills started piling up 6 months in. Dad's insurance covered about 40% of the home care costs. The rest came out of pocket. I paid for it. I liquidated my 401k, drained my savings account, sold my car and started using Dad's old sedan. Nina sent me a text once asking if I needed money. I said yes. She never responded. By year 3, I'd spent over $80,000 of my own money keeping Dad comfortable. Nina spent that same period posting Instagram photos from Bali, Morocco, and the Maldives. Her captions were always the same: living my best life, choosing joy, investing in experiences, not things. Meanwhile, I was learning how to operate a feeding tube. Year 4, Dad started forgetting things. Not big things at first, just small details. He'd ask me what day it was, then ask again 10 minutes later. He'd forget he'd already eaten breakfast. The doctor said it was normal. The cancer had spread to his brain. I watched him disappear piece by piece. The man who taught me algebra, who coached my soccer team, who walked me through my first breakup, slowly became someone who didn't recognize his own reflection. Nina called once during this period. "How's Dad doing?" she asked. "Not great," I said. "Oh," she said. There was a long pause. "Well, stay strong, okay? I'm sure he appreciates everything you're doing." Then she hung up. Year 5. Dad stopped speaking. He could still hear me, I think. His eyes would track me when I moved around the room. But the words were gone. I sat with him every night and read to him. His favorite books. The ones he used to read to us when we were kids. Nina didn't call. Not once in that final year. She showed up 3 days after he died. Not to comfort me, not to help plan the funeral, to ask about the house. "So what's the plan with the property?" she asked, standing in the doorway like she was afraid to come inside. "I don't know," I said. "I haven't thought about it yet." "Well, we should probably sell it," she said. "Split the proceeds." "Nina, he died 3 days ago." "I know. I'm not saying we have to do it right now. I'm just saying we should start thinking about it." She left 20 minutes later. Didn't help clean out his room. Didn't help sort through his belongings. Didn't offer to help pay for the funeral. Just left. And now, standing in his study, holding an invoice for $48,000, I finally understood. She hadn't been building a business for 5 years. She'd been waiting for him to die. I sat at Dad's desk and opened my laptop. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, muscle memory from 1,000 audits. I logged into the family trust portal. Dad had given me the password 3 months ago. Back when he could still write things down. He'd pressed a piece of paper into my hand one morning and whispered, "Just in case." I typed in the username, then the password. Access denied. I tried again. Same result. Nina had changed it. Of course she had. She probably called the bank the second the coroner's van pulled away from the house. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. Think, Mara. Think like an auditor, not a sister. Nina was smart enough to change the password, but she wasn't smart enough to understand how security actually works. Most people don't realize that changing a password doesn't disable two-factor authentication if it's linked to a physical device. Dad had an iPad, an old one, beat up and cracked, that he used for reading the news and checking email. If that iPad was still registered to the trust account, I could request a verification code. I just needed to find it. I stood up and walked to the door, unlocked it, stepped into the hallway. It looked like a crime scene. Nina had started clearing the house out while I was at the funeral. Garbage bags lined the walls. Dad's clothes, his books, his entire life, stuffed into black plastic like it was trash. I started digging through the bags. My hands moved on autopilot. I shoved aside his favorite cardigan, the one with the elbow patches, his reading glasses, a stack of crossword puzzle books. Then I found it. The iPad, face down under a pile of old magazines. The screen was cracked, spiderweb fractures across the glass. I pressed the home button. Nothing. Dead battery. I ran back to the study, tore open the desk drawers until I found a charging cable. I plugged it in. The screen stayed black. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. Come on, come on! The red battery icon appeared. I watched the percentage tick up. 1%, 2%. Then it turned on. I grabbed my laptop, went back to the trust portal, and clicked Resend Verification Code. The iPad buzzed. Your verification code is 7293, I typed it in. The dashboard loaded. And there it was. The truth, laid out in neat rows. Current balance, $847,293.16. My father's entire estate, the house, his retirement accounts, his life insurance payout, all of it sitting in one account. And right below the balance, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Pending transfer, $450,000. Recipient, Lux Holdings, LLC. Status, scheduled to clear in 48 hours, Lux Holdings. Sio Nina's company. She was transferring $500,000 to herself. I scrolled down, looking for documentation, for authorization, for anything that would explain this. There was nothing, just the transfer order, dated 3 days after Dad died. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I could stop it right now. I could freeze the account, call the bank, file an injunction. But then what? It would be a family dispute, a civil matter. Nina would hire a lawyer, claim she had permission, drag it out for months. She'd probably win. Because she had the one thing I didn't have anymore. Dad's signature on the power of attorney. He'd signed it 2 years ago when he could still write. He'd given her access to his accounts in case of emergency. She'd been waiting for this moment ever since. I closed the laptop. Canceling the transfer would make this a legal fight. But letting it go through, that would make it a crime. Wire fraud. Moving money across state lines under false pretenses while I held durable power of attorney as the primary caretaker. That was federal. I didn't cancel the transfer. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and navigated to FinCEN's Suspicious Activity Report portal. I started filling out the form. Account numbers, transfer amounts, beneficiary details, timeline of events. I attached screenshots, bank statements, the original power of attorney document showing Dad's signature. I saved it as a draft. I wasn't going to stop Nina. I was going to let her hang herself. The movers arrived at 7 the next morning. I was already awake. I'd spent the entire night in Dad's study, going through bank statements, credit card records, every piece of financial documentation I could find. What I discovered made me sick. Nina hadn't just stolen from the estate. She'd been stealing from Dad for years. 2020. Dad's insurance paid out $18,000 for a medical procedure. Nina deposited it into Lux Holdings, then sent Dad a check for $5,000. Told him that was the full payout. 2021. Dad sold some stocks to cover medication costs. $23,000. Nina helped him with the sale. $15,000 made it to his account. The rest vanished into her business. 2022. Dad's pension deposited $1,400 monthly. Nina had convinced him to let her manage it for him. She skimmed $300 every month for 2 years. She'd stolen over $60,000 from our dying father. And now she was here to kick me out of his house. I heard her voice downstairs. "Take everything from the guest room first," she was telling someone. "Anything in boxes goes to the curb. Anything valuable gets tagged for the estate sale." I packed my clothes into the 2 duffel bags I'd bought the night before at Target. That was it. My entire life. 2 bags. Everything else I owned, I'd sold to pay for Dad's care. I walked downstairs carrying the bags. Nina was standing in the foyer with a clipboard, directing 2 men in moving company uniforms. She was drinking a latte from the expensive coffee place downtown. She glanced at me. "Oh, good, you're up. The movers need to access your room." "It's not my room," I said quietly. "It's Dad's house." "Was Dad's house," Nina corrected. She made a note on her clipboard. "Make sure you leave the keys on the kitchen counter before you go." I walked past her toward the living room. I needed to see something. The fireplace mantel. That's where Dad's urn sat. A simple brass vessel he'd picked out himself 3 years ago as a joke. "Nothing fancy," he'd said. "I don't want to be showy when I'm dead." It was the only thing I'd asked for in the settlement emails. I didn't care about the furniture or the art or any of it. I just wanted him. The mantel was empty, not just empty, scrubbed clean. Where his urn had been, there was now a decorative vase with white flowers. Perfectly centered, perfectly staged. I felt something cold move through my chest. "Nina!" I called out. My voice sounded strange, distant. She appeared in the doorway. "What?" "Where's the urn?" She waved a hand dismissively. I had to clear the surfaces. The realtor said personal items make it harder for buyers to imagine themselves living here. "Where is the urn?" Nina sighed, like I was being unreasonable. "It was cluttering the space, Mara. A big metal pot full of ashes sitting right there in the focal point of the room. It didn't fit the aesthetic." "What did you do with it?" "I threw it away." The room tilted. "You what?" "I threw it away. This morning. It's already gone." I looked toward the window. Through the glass, I could see the street. Empty. The garbage truck had already come. "You threw Dad in the trash," I said slowly. Nina rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. They're just ashes, Mara. It's not like he was actually in there." Something inside me went quiet. Not angry, not sad. Just quiet. "Get out of my house," Nina said. She checked her watch. "You have 10 minutes before I call the police for trespassing." I picked up my bags and walked out the front door. I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Nina talking to the stagers about paint colors. She thought she'd won. She thought by throwing away his ashes, she'd erased him, and by kicking me out, she'd erased me. She didn't know that she'd just removed the only thing holding me back. I had a meeting at 2 p.m. Nina's lawyer had requested it. "Estate settlement," the email said. "Bring documentation of any expenses you believe you're owed." I wasn't going to that meeting to negotiate. I was going to watch Nina sign her own arrest warrant. I got to the financial district 40 minutes early. I needed time to compose myself. Put the armor back on. I was wearing my only good suit. Navy blue. Heels that clicked with authority on the pavement. I turned the corner toward Whitman and Associates, the law firm Nina had hired. That's when I saw him. An old man in a wheelchair, stuck. There was construction on the sidewalk. Orange cones everywhere. They'd left a trench open, covered with a sheet of plywood as a makeshift ramp. His wheelchair had slipped off the edge. One wheel was sunk deep into thick mud. People were walking past him. Businessmen in expensive suits. Women in designer heels. Everyone looking at their phones, pretending they didn't see him. I checked my watch. 1:20 p.m. If I stopped, I might be late. But then I thought about the urn. About how Nina saw Dad, how she saw me, as clutter, as something in the way. To these people walking past, this man was the same thing. I stepped over the caution tape. The mud immediately sucked at my heels, coating the leather in thick gray sludge. "Don't move," I said, setting my bag down on dry concrete. "I've got you." The man looked up. He had sharp eyes, intelligent, but his hands were shaking on the armrests. "You're ruining your shoes, miss," he said. His voice was raspy but steady. "You look like you're heading somewhere important." "I am," I said, gripping the metal frame of his wheelchair. "But shoes depreciate, people don't." I pulled. It took everything I had. The mud didn't want to let go. My skirt was covered in splatter. My hands were filthy. But I got him free. I pushed him back onto the plywood, then up to the sidewalk. "Thank you," he said. He was studying me now, the way a judge looks at a witness. "Most people wouldn't have stopped," he continued. "They calculate the cost, the interruption, the dry cleaning bill. They decide it's not worth it." "I know people like that," I said. "I'm related to one." He looked at the building I was staring at, the glass tower where Nina was probably already waiting. "You're going to Whitman and Associates," he said. It wasn't a question. I froze. "How did you know?" He adjusted his jacket. It was a nice suit, expensive, strange for someone stuck in the mud. "Because Whitman and Associates is the kind of firm that attracts people in desperate situations," he said. "And you look like someone walking into a war." "I'm just going to a meeting," I said carefully. "With your sister?" My heart skipped. "How did you—" "Your body language," he said. "The way you said, related to one. You're not afraid. You're angry. That means family." I started to walk away. "I need to go. I'm going to be late." "Wait," he said. His voice had changed, harder now. "My name is Leonard Ashford, and I think you should let me come with you." I turned back. Why would I do that? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Leonard Ashford Chair, State Bar Disciplinary Committee. I stared at it. "I've been building a case against Edwin Whitman for 8 months, Leonard said quietly. "Price fixing, witness tampering, filing falsified documents. He's smart, careful, but he makes mistakes when he thinks no one important is watching." He looked up at me. "If you're walking into a room with him, you need a witness, and I need to see him in action." "I don't understand," I said. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've seen 1,000 people walk into that building," Leonard said. "Most of them walk out with nothing. Their cases dismissed, their evidence lost, their lives destroyed." He wheeled closer. "I'm tired of watching, and you just proved you're someone who stops when other people walk past." I looked at this man. Mud on his wheels. Fire in his eyes. Nina wanted to see me broken. Fine. I'd walk in covered in mud with a stranger in a wheelchair. I'd feed her arrogance until she choked on it. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." The conference room was on the 14th floor. All glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A massive mahogany table in the center. Nina was already there. So was her lawyer. Edwin Whitman looked exactly like I expected. Mid-50s. Expensive suit. Hair professionally styled. The kind of man who learned to smile without using his eyes. Nina looked perfect. Hair pulled back. Makeup flawless. She was wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my rent. They both stared when I walked in. First at the dried mud on my shoes, then at Leonard in his wheelchair, his suit still streaked with clay. Nina's nose wrinkled. Jesus, Mara, you smell like a sewer. Did you roll here? Whitman stood up. Ms. Chen, this is a private meeting. I'm afraid your companion can't be present for confidential discussions. He's my witness, I said quietly. I helped Leonard settle at the far end of the table. Witness to what? Nina asked. She looked at Whitman. Do we need to call security? That won't be necessary, Whitman said smoothly. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. Let's keep this civil. I sat down. Leonard stayed silent in the corner, his hands folded in his lap. Nina didn't even look at him. To her, he was furniture. Whitman slid a folder across the table. I've prepared a settlement offer. Given the circumstances, I think you'll find it quite generous. I opened the folder. Release of claims agreement payment to Mara Chen. $5,000 in exchange for complete release of all claims against the estate. $5,000. For 5 years of my life. You can't be serious, I said. It's more than fair, Nina said. She was examining her nails. Considering you have no legal standing, Dad's power of attorney went to me. The trust is in my name. You're just a caretaker who stayed too long. I paid for his medication, I said. Your choice, Nina replied. I paid for his nurses. Also your choice. I gave up my career. Nina finally looked at me. And that's very sad, Mara. Really. But it doesn't entitle you to my inheritance. Our inheritance, I said. Was our inheritance, Nina corrected. Before you decided to play nurse for 5 years, you made your choices. Now live with them. Whitman tapped the document. The offer is valid for 48 hours. After that, Ms. Nina Chen will pursue legal action for back rent and property damages. I've calculated those fees at approximately $70,000. So I suggest you take the $5,000 while it's on the table. I looked at Nina. She was smiling. Actually smiling. She thought she'd won. I have a question, I said slowly. What? Nina sighed, like I was wasting her time. The DNR order, I said. The one you filed 3 days before Dad died. Nina's smile faltered, just slightly. What about it? Whitman asked. His voice had an edge now. The doctor said Dad was improving, I said. His blood work was better. They were talking about extending treatment. And then you filed a do not resuscitate order. That's my right as power of attorney, Nina said. But her voice was different now, defensive. You didn't tell me, I said. I didn't have to. You did it without consulting his doctor. Mara, what's your point? Nina snapped. My point is... I pulled my phone out, set it on the table. The screen was dark. Why did you do it? Because he was suffering, Nina said. She was getting louder now, agitated. Because I loved him enough to let him go with dignity. Or because you needed the money, I said quietly. The room went silent. Nina's face flushed. Excuse me? You have a balloon payment due, I said. Friday, $500,000. If you don't pay it, the lenders seize your company. And if they seize your company, they'll find out about the embezzlement. Nina stood up. You don't know what you're talking about. Sit down, Ms. Chen, Whitman said sharply. But Nina was shaking now. You think you're so smart, Mara. You think you figured something out. But you're just a broke, bitter little... He was getting better, I said. And you couldn't wait. He was 92 years old, Nina shouted. He was going to die anyway. I needed... She stopped. Whitman's face went white. Nina looked at him, then at me. I needed the estate, she whispered. The business was failing. I had debts. Real debts, Mara. Not credit cards. People who don't take no for an answer. So you killed him, I said. I didn't kill him, Nina said, but her voice was shaking. I just stopped prolonging it. The DNR was a mercy. He was tired. He was ready. He told you that? I asked. Nina didn't answer. I tapped my phone screen. The recording app was open. Red bar pulsing. Recording, 14 minutes, 23 seconds. Nina's eyes went wide. "You recorded this," she whispered. I didn't answer. Whitman shoved his chair back. "I'm terminating this meeting immediately. Ms. Chen, do not say another word." But Nina wasn't listening. She was staring at my phone like it was a bomb. "I can fix this," she said suddenly. She pulled out her own phone. "I have money now. The estate transferred. Look." She turned her screen around. Transfer complete. $450,000. Recipient, Lux Holdings, LLC. "See?" Nina said. She was smiling again, manic now. "I can pay you 50,000, 100,000, whatever you want." "The estate hasn't transferred yet," I said. Nina's smile froze. "What?" "The transfer is scheduled for tomorrow," I said. "What are you looking at?" Nina's fingers were shaking as she scrolled through her phone. Her face went from confused to panicked. It says it went through," she whispered. "Let me see," Whitman said, reaching for the phone. Nina jerked it away. "It went through. It shows completed. I moved it an hour ago to the offshore account." "What offshore account?" Whitman said slowly. Leonard wheeled forward. His voice was different now. Not frail, not shaky, clear, authoritative. "Mr. Whitman," he said, "would you like to explain to your client what happens when someone wires estate funds to an offshore account while the estate is under federal review?" Whitman turned. He looked at Leonard like he was seeing him for the first time. His face went gray. "Chairman Ashford," he whispered. Leonard nodded. "Hello, Edwin." Nina looked between them. "Who the hell is this?" I pulled out my laptop, opened it, turned the screen toward Nina. "Your account has been frozen. Federal investigation, pending contact. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network." "I filed a suspicious activity report 3 days ago," I said calmly. "The FBI was waiting for you to move the money. You just wired stolen estate funds to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. That's wire fraud, money laundering, and probably half a dozen other federal crimes." Nina's phone clattered onto the table. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Whitman stood up. "Chairman Ashford, I had no knowledge of any illegal activity. If my client acted improperly, I was not informed." "You filed the DNR order," Leonard said quietly, "without physician approval, while knowing your client had significant debt. I'd suggest you contact your malpractice insurance carrier." Whitman grabbed his briefcase and moved toward the door. "Sit down, Mr. Whitman," Leonard said. Whitman stopped. "The State Bar will want to interview you about this case," Leonard continued, "and several others. I've been watching you for some time." Whitman sat back down. His hands were shaking. Nina was staring at me. "You did this," she whispered. "You set me up." "No," I said. "I just stopped protecting you." Nina lunged across the table. She grabbed for my phone, knocking over a water glass. Leonard wheeled back. Whitman shouted something. The door opened. 2 federal agents walked in, badges out. "Nina Chen?" the first one said. Nina was still reaching for my phone, desperate, crying now. "Nina Chen, you're under arrest for wire fraud and conspiracy to commit theft from an estate." They pulled her hands behind her back. The handcuffs clicked. Nina was screaming. "This isn't fair! She ruined everything! Mara, tell them! Tell them I didn't mean to!" They walked her out. Her voice echoed down the hallway until the elevator doors closed. The conference room was silent. Whitman sat with his head in his hands. Leonard looked at me. "You should go," he said gently. "There will be depositions. One testimony. It's going to be a long process." I closed my laptop. "Thank you," I said. "You saved me," Leonard said. "In the mud. Most people wouldn't have stopped." "Most people aren't worth saving," I said. I walked out of that building into the afternoon sun. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Nina's public defender. She wanted to make a deal, full confession in exchange for a reduced sentence. She'd testify against Whitman, give the prosecutors everything they needed to disbar him, and charge him with conspiracy. In exchange, she'd serve 3 years instead of 15. I didn't go to the hearing, but I read the transcript. Prosecutor: Ms. Chen, in your own words, describe your relationship with your sister. Nina Chen: She was always the good one, the smart one. I was the pretty one, I guess. That's what people said. But Mara was the one Dad was proud of. Prosecutor: And when your father became ill? Nina Chen: I couldn't handle it. I know that sounds bad, but I couldn't watch him die. So I left. I told myself I was protecting my mental health, that I was doing what I needed to do for me. Prosecutor: And your business? Lux Beauty? Nina Chen: It was failing, had been for years. I kept it alive with Dad's money. Small amounts at first, enough that he wouldn't notice. Then bigger amounts. By the time he got really sick, I was taking everything I could. Prosecutor: Did you feel guilty? Nina Chen: Pause. I told myself he wouldn't have wanted me to fail, that he would have given me the money anyway if I'd asked. But I never asked, because I knew he'd say no. He would have told me to get a real job, to stop pretending. Sure, Prosecutor: And the DNR order? Nina Chen: I was out of time. The lenders were going to seize everything. I needed the estate to clear. And Dad he was just hanging on, week after week. The doctors kept saying he had days left, but he wouldn't die. So I signed the order. Prosecutor: Did you tell your sister? Nina Chen: No. Prosecutor: Why not? Nina Chen: Because she would have stopped me. She would have fought. She loved him more than I did. Pause. She loved him, and I loved money. That's the truth. That's all of it. I put the transcript down. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. The estate took 4 months to settle. The house came back to me. The bank voided Nina's fraudulent loan. The trust was restored. I spent 2 weeks cleaning, throwing out the staging furniture Nina had bought, repainting the walls the color Dad liked, putting his books back on the shelves. And I found the urn. It took me 6 days of calling sanitation departments, tracking truck routes, digging through intake records at the Queen's transfer station. But I found it, dented, scratched, covered in coffee grounds and broken glass, but sealed. I brought it home, polished it, put it back on the mantel where it belonged. That night, I sat in Dad's chair in the study. The house was quiet, not the terrible silence of sickness, just peaceful. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my old boss at Henderson & Associates. Hi Karen, I know it's been 5 years. I'm ready to come back if you'll have me. I'm rusty, but I'm good at what I do, and I'm ready to work again. Let me know. Mara. She responded in 20 minutes. Mara, we have an opening in forensic auditing. Start Monday? I smiled. Monday. I walked through the house one more time before bed, past the study, the kitchen, the living room. I stopped at the mantel, at the urn. I kept it, I told him. The house, your things, all of it. The urn sat there, brass and silent. Nina's going to prison, I continued. 3 years, maybe less with good behavior. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if anything would be enough. I touched the cool metal. But it's over now, it's done. I went upstairs to bed. For the first time in 5 years, I slept through the night. No alarms, no emergency calls, no panic about medication schedules, just sleep. 6 months after Nina's sentencing, I got a letter from her. It was handwritten, 4 pages, front and back. I almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of me. Dear Mara, I've had a lot of time to think. That's pretty much all there is to do here. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. I threw Dad away. I threw you away. I threw away everything that mattered because I was so focused on things that didn't. The therapist here says I have narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. What I do know is that I spent 34 years thinking the world revolved around me, and it doesn't. You were there when I wasn't. You held his hand when he died. You got nothing for it except an eviction notice, and you could have just taken the $5,000 and walked away. But you didn't. You made me face what I'd done. I don't know if that makes you kind or cruel. Maybe both. I'm out in 2 years if I keep my record clean. When I get out, I want to visit his grave. With you, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve that. But I'm asking anyway. Nina. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I haven't responded. I don't know if I will. Some people say forgiveness is for yourself, not for the other person. That holding on to anger hurts you more than them. Maybe that's true, but I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I rebuilt my career. I bought out the trust, paid off Dad's debts, donated some of the money to hospice care organizations. I still live in the house. It doesn't feel haunted. It feels like home. On Sundays, I make pancakes, shaped like animals, the way Dad used to. I eat them alone. But I'm not lonely. I learned something in those 5 years of caregiving. Something I didn't understand until it was over. Dignity isn't about winning. It's about doing the right thing when no one's watching, when there's no reward, when it costs you everything. Nina spent 5 years building an empire on lies. I spent 5 years changing bedpans and holding the hand of a dying man. She ended up in prison. I ended up here, in a clean house with a clear conscience. I'm not sure who got the better deal, but I know who I'd rather be. If you're listening to this and you've ever been the one who stayed when everyone else left, the one who sacrificed when others only took, the one who was called weak for being kind, this story is for you. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You're not a failure. You're the one who stopped in the mud while everyone else walked past. And that matters more than you know. Please like and subscribe to appreciate our work.